What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to give you an overview of some of the current data points, what shorts did, and SoFi's response. Very interesting stuff. I want to go over all of that, but first make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that said, let's get right to it. SoFi closed 1.1% in the red. No news, no SEC filings associated to today at least. So of course it going down was largely due to its technicals. So I'll talk about that in a second. But like I said, nothing really coming out to kind of move SoFi in either direction. Unofficially though, there was this that was tweeted and probably on other social medias. Anthony Noto did retweet it as well, but SoFi Unlimited 2% credit card members just got a new benefit upgrade. So it looks like they're now getting 2.2% cash back rewards on all purchases and unlimited 3.3% on SoFi travel. Very interesting. So this is SoFi's response to Robinhood. And so it's very interesting over the last week. There's been a lot of debate on how SoFi and Robinhood aren't even in direct competition and that the whole Robinhood credit card is just overblown. But clearly it's not overblown because SoFi reacted. And so this is their response to try to regain and kind of incentivize more members to come over to SoFi, because similarly, once you have a checking account, you kind of just integrate everything, right? Sometimes once someone has a credit card, they like to move all of their other assets over. Rarely, but it does happen. But I just found this very interesting, especially a lot of people, like I said, have had a lot of deep debates about how this isn't even that big of a deal, but very interesting to see SoFi's response. Aside from that though, the only new thing that really came out today was a new analyst rating. So Bill, who is from Seaport, does have a 42% success rating, so not necessarily the best, so take that with a grain of salt. Did initiate coverage, no actual price target, but did give a hold rating. So of course, nothing really crazy, no price target to go based off of, but still even a 42% success rating isn't all that good. That is very, very similar to, where's his name? Where was it? Wedbush David, 43%. So it's kind of another David equivalent if you want to think about it like that. So all in all, nothing really crazy to write home about. No reason to buy SoFi, no reason to sell based off of that. It is what it is. Moving on to some data points, starting off with shorts. They did return 1.43 million shares today. Utilization is 68.42%. Right now, around 200.27 million shares overall are being shorted, and that works out to be $1.47 billion, so quite a lot. Cost to borrow average is 1.06%, and through Interactive Broker short availability does indicate around 5.4 million shares is available to be shorted. So very interesting stuff. As you can kind of see based on the intraday, it looks like they did return quite a lot initially. They started to kind of cause some volatility near the tail end, so matching with this. Moving on to options, $4.04 million in calls being purchased versus $1.77 million in puts. Sentiment wise, somewhat evenly divided between calls and puts, so it is what it is, but very interesting on the dollar value. So that is a very nice increase in comparison to the last week. So it goes to show that big money is somewhat interested in SoFi, and plus just going back over here looking at the total volume, 31.56 million shares were traded, 52.8 is the average. These are some of the transactions that did occur today on the secondary market. So I normally compare this information with the total volume, and obviously you can determine who's actually been buying SoFi, whether it be just algorithmic trading or larger institutions. Based on this, it looks like big money was buying the SoFi dip essentially. So 1.15 million, 1.07, 1.7, 7.04 million share transaction. So yeah, big money behind the scenes has been buying, even though technically the downward pressure and it did close red. Not necessarily the best. That just goes to show that algorithmic trading was trying to suppress SoFi. So kind of does suck all in all, but looking at the options, just to give you a quick overview of the call options that were purchased. I know I'm kind of flip-flopping a little bit, but my apologies. There's about a consensus for it to be above about $7.50, and then looking at the puts, there's a consensus for it to be sub $7. And like I said, I pointed out over my video yesterday, you can kind of see it is free and clear to run up to around the $8 range. So these walls aren't really being created or formed yet. 13,000 at that 8 and then 11,000 in open interest at the 750. So I'll continue to monitor and all the other fun jazz as well. I will monitor to see if any analysts are doing anything different for their upcoming Q1 earnings, because officially today is April the 1st. So Q1 is locked and loaded. So we'll just have to wait and see if there is any changes or amendments essentially to their earnings per share, like revenue or a lot of the other key metrics. Today was more of a technicals day, like I said at the very beginning, with it closing at 722. It is trading between this S1 and the pivot. So 719 is going to be that strong support. It did temporarily break that today, but luckily enough, it kind of held and bounced off of that a little bit slightly. I did actually buy a small amount today, so another 1,000 shares at exactly this $7.19, because I did see this technicals, and one common thing that's been really happening with SoFi is it temporarily breaks below these kind of support levels, and then of course I think it gets somewhat oversold, and then institutions and algorithmic trading kind of pushes it higher. So in my opinion, I feel like it is fairly safe at least to buy around these very strong support levels. So I did buy a little bit more at that 719, but regardless though, we'll just have to wait and see if it does hold going into tomorrow, because the technicals are starting to look somewhat iffy because of today's pullback. It could be associated to some consolidation though, so that's something to consider. But $7.35 is that next strong resistance point, and in fact it did bounce off of that. Looking on the actual chart though, it is really wanting to transition into the higher percentile, but again, not really enough there on the market or any catalyst associated to SoFi to cause it to go higher from here. And plus, aside from that, SoFi has really struggled with a lot of the resistance points above it. So again, not necessarily the best. Once it does break into this range right here, then you should see a very nice pop up to at least that 788, which again is a very strong resistance point, as I brought up in my video yesterday. Looking at stochastic, you do see it at 44, so somewhat neutral, so it's not considered overbought, nor is it oversold. And then looking at momentum, it shows number of retail investors have been getting out over this last couple days, ever since it looks like the 25th. So what's your thoughts on SoFi? Have you been buying? Have you been selling? Where do you see things going? Do you think it's going to consolidate a little bit further down into maybe the high sixes once again? Or do you think that tomorrow will be the day for it to transition into the higher range? So what's your viewpoint? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And with all that, appreciate all of you watching.